The K-9 Assessment and Reporting Guides for English Language Arts and Mathematics are designed to increase consistency in our assessment and reporting practices. These tools will support teachers with task design, assessment, and reporting, and can be found on the Assessment and Reporting page on Insight. Let's first look at considerations for effective implementation of the guides. The Assessment and Reporting Guides do not replace the Alberta Programs of Study. Teachers ensure that each learning opportunity they design for students is explicitly connected to their programs of study. The Assessment and Reporting Guides outline criteria for synthesized outcomes from programs of study that speak to what students know and can do at each level of proficiency in the K-9 proficiency scale for academic achievement. The learning progressions outlined in the guides do not describe the path that every student will take toward the learning target. While the guides provide a possible progression of student learning from beginning to mastery level understanding, students may begin at different points and may progress along different paths and at different paces. The guides outline a learning progression rather than a teaching progression. When teachers design tasks and assessment tools, they may not follow the linear path that's described. Teachers need not wait until the end of a learning cycle to introduce complex and rich tasks. When used throughout the learning cycle, complex tasks inform instructional design and allow teachers to personalize learning for their students. So how will the guides be used? Teachers can use the Assessment and Reporting Guides together with their programs of study throughout the teaching and learning process. When they design tasks and assessment tools, record evidence of learning, analyze patterns of learning, and communicate with students and families about progress and achievement. By using the Assessment and Reporting Guides as consistent reference points throughout the school year, teachers can be confident that the assessment information they gather and share with students and families is aligned with a consistent system standard. With each learning cycle, teachers design quality tasks to engage students in authentic and meaningful work in the discipline. They also develop task-specific assessment tools, which might include setting learning targets and developing success criteria with students, as well as the creation of checklists, rubrics, and scoring guides. Throughout the learning cycle, these task-specific assessment tools provide the criteria students and teachers use to improve student learning through formative assessment. And at the end of the learning cycle, the same assessment criteria are used to verify student learning through summative assessment. This collection of assessment information forms the body of evidence that teachers will consider when determining report card grades. As teachers gather evidence of learning, they record the assessment information. This record could include a combination of anecdotal comments and numerical grades. Recording assessment information throughout the reporting period supports teachers in accurately summarizing achievement at report card time. Teachers use the evidence they've recorded to analyze patterns of learning, which informs their instructional decisions and their communication with students and families. Throughout the reporting period, teachers determine strengths and next steps in learning for each student, and they communicate this information on an ongoing basis in a variety of ways. This ongoing communication allows teachers, students, and families to identify and celebrate learning along the way, and ensures that report card information is both expected and easily understood. At report card time, teachers look to the body of evidence and consider consistency and recency when writing report card comments and determining which achievement indicator most accurately represents the student's level of achievement. The learning progressions outlined in the guides will be applied differently at the time of the December-January report card compared to the June report card. In both cases, teachers report on what they have taught and assessed in that reporting period. Complete teaching and learning of the program of studies is expected to occur by the end of the school year, and teachers engage in long-term planning to sequence the learning and assessment of all outcomes. Some outcomes will be taught and assessed over the course of the entire year, while others might be taught and assessed in a more finite period of time during one reporting period. Because of this, the body of evidence that's considered for the first reporting period will be different than the body of evidence used in June. In December-January, the body of evidence may include outcomes that have been assessed to their full depth and breadth, as well as outcomes that have been assessed only to a certain point in the learning progression. In June, all outcomes that are reported on will have been assessed to their full depth and breadth. This would include both outcomes that spanned the entire school year and those taught only in the second reporting period. Between the two reporting periods, outcomes should be reported on at least once. If certain outcomes were taught exclusively in the first reporting period and were not revisited during the second, they would not be included in the June body of evidence. However, it might be the case that with spaced practice, teachers have provided additional opportunities for learning and assessment of some of those outcomes in the second reporting period. Teachers would then include the more recent achievement in relation to those outcomes in the June body of evidence. This Grade 3 math example explains the thinking teachers engage in when synthesized outcomes have been assessed to their full depth and breadth, as indicated by the assessed arrows spanning the entire learning progression. The achievement indicators are aligned directly below the criteria in the learning progression to show that when synthesized outcomes have been assessed to completion, teachers would layer the achievement indicators over the entire learning progression when summatively assessing student learning and reporting achievement. And so, in this example, being able to interpret and model a fraction given symbolically would be indicative of a level 4 achievement for this synthesized outcome. It's important to note here that the criteria at each level of proficiency are inclusive of those described at the prior levels, and therefore the body of evidence of a student demonstrating a level 4 achievement would reveal that the student has successfully demonstrated all elements described over the learning progression. This kindergarten English language arts example explains the thinking teachers engage in when synthesized outcomes have been assessed only to a certain point in the learning progression, as indicated by the assessed arrows spanning only the first half of the progression. In these cases, teachers cannot use end-of-year expectations when summatively assessing student learning and reporting achievement. Instead, teachers consider what has been taught and the level of understanding they've expected students to demonstrate so far. In the visual, 2 levels have been grayed out to indicate that students have not yet been expected to demonstrate that level of understanding. In order to summatively assess or report on this synthesized outcome, The teacher would layer the achievement indicators onto the first 2 levels of the learning progression. Although the teacher may have incorporated aspects of what is described at the grade out levels into the teaching and learning that has occurred, at this time, they aren't yet expecting students to demonstrate that level of understanding. This means that in December-January, a student can demonstrate a level 3 or 4 understanding in relation to a synthesized outcome that has been assessed only to a certain point in the learning progression. In this example, a kindergarten student demonstrating mastery in their ability to identify letters within personally significant words and symbols in familiar contexts would be indicative of a level 4 achievement for this synthesized outcome. For outcomes that have been assessed only to a certain point in the learning progression in December-January, the learning will continue into the second reporting period, and teachers will consider end-of-year expectations when reporting in June. Depending on the progress a student makes in their learning, it's possible that their achievement in June will be consistent with, higher than, or lower than their achievement in December-January. The achievement indicators on the report card do not communicate information about progress or growth. They represent the student's level of understanding of the grade level outcomes that have been taught and assessed during that reporting period. When used together with Alberta Programs of Study, the assessment and reporting guides will support us in building a common understanding of the K-9 proficiency scale for academic achievement. They will also increase consistency in the way we use the scale to assess student learning and communicate with students and families about achievement.